one of the many phage gurus in this room, and we'll hand over to Tristan to tell us about the French experience.
Thank you so much for the introduction. So, how to set up a phage therapy center? I will report you the phage in Lyon clinic experience. So everybody know here that phage therapy is absolutely fascinating, and everybody know also that we totally failed in the West to implement this therapy. There is a potential incredible preclinical efficacy of particular phages. You know that some phages could be positive for the bacteria, and we have to select only lytic phages that have the capacity to replicate into the patient strain and to give some positive signs of infection control with a cure of the infectious process. You know also that 1 century ago, Félix d'Herelle tried to treat the first patient with phages. He developed fixed cocktail, and at this time, the Eliava Center still maintained this cocktail. It's not just a fixed cocktail because they are taking into account the microbiological evolution during time, and I think it is also a key process for a phage therapy center. The problem is that in Europe it is forbidden to import Georgian phages because they are not safe for injections. We have to don't forget the lessons of the past, because from my opinion, phages are not, all bacterial infection are not good indication for phage therapy, so we have to determine what are the most relevant clinical situation. We have to respect the experience of the East, and what kind of phages can I use, or can we use? Remember that phages are natural viruses, so it's very complex for the regulator because, per definition, it is not sterile. There are different ways to purify the phages. If you use natural phages, you have different way, and the legislation is different depending on the different country. You have GMP, of course, good manufacturing practice. It's industrial production, at least in part feasible for phage therapy, but in fact it follows the regulation for drugs. So one phage is one product, and it's quite difficult to imagine to cover all the medical need with this concept. You also have the good pharmacy practice and magistral preparation, because a pharmacist could take the responsibility of the preparation, and it's open door for public production, but is public production feasible for phage therapy? It's more convenient for a personalized approach, and it's more the concept to produce different phages according a common way that we would like to use with this kind of situation. So in a perfect world, it could be nice to have unpurified phage bank and also purified phage bank, and to treat some patient and to adapt to the patient strain. It is an important way to develop phage therapy. In fact, this year there is a lot of discussion in the European Medicines Agency, and I think we will have more possibility to develop phage therapy in a close future. There are also genetically engineered phages that are developed by some companies, so it's a dedicated legislation. And finally, as an infectious disease physician, what I would like to have is pharmaceutical grade phages, and phages that are considered to be safe for injections. So we have to imagine what would be the phage 2.0 therapy. I think we have to use only pharmaceutical grade phages. Throughout the SGNTA group and to create what would be the standard for phage therapy center, when the patient would be in the center, and for a patient we will discuss the potential indication of phages and to find the phage that would be suitable for the patient to treat a particular infectious disease. So there is a lot of mythology in phage therapy. A lot of patients did not understand at all why we are not using phages. There are a fantastic placebo effect also with phage therapy. And there is a microbiological effect that we have to demonstrate the clinical benefit of phages with evidence-based medicine. So what are the different examples of phage therapy center? You have the Eliava Institute, 1 century ago. They are producing their own phages. So most of the time the patient has to go there. They adapt fixed cocktail and they can produce personalized phage therapy for a particular patient. It's interesting. You have also in Poland the Hirschfeld Institute. They produce their own phages, but they are not suitable for injection, and it's impossible to import these phages. You have the experience of the Queen Astrid Military Hospital that is based on phage production, public phage production, and it is possible to import these phages because they can fit the requirement of the French Health Authority. So it is possible for us to import these pharmaceutical grade phages. It's not GMP, but it is possible to treat some patients with that. There are other examples of centers in Israel, for instance. They produce their own phages, but there are also the ability to treat some patients with phages from the industry. And there is also the IPAS center, centralized in patient need, and try to find phages from the industry or from public production. So I'm an infectious disease physician, and my main conflict of interest is of course the patient. I am working in a referral center for the management of complex pollen infection in Lyon, and the expertise that we have make that we have a lot of patients who are coming here. We try to develop a lot of emergent and innovative way, and phages are some innovative treatment. We treated some patients with relapsing severe bone and joint infection with phages as adjuvant, and we started some randomized clinical trials in less severe bacterial infections. And finally, the combination between national expertise of the CRIOAC, that is the referral center for the management of bone and joint infection, and the integration of the phage therapy center for a particular infection, for that we have expertise, facilitates the individual patient benefit to be treated with phages, and increase the possibility to do clinical trial that will increase the scientific level of evidence, we hope. So we have some interaction with the French Health Authority. It's a key element. In each country you have to interact with your national agency. So for the French agency, clinical trials are mandatory and requested to build an evidence-based medicine. Whenever a patient cannot be enrolled in clinical trial, the French Health Authority can consider compassionate use under exceptional circumstances in case of vital or functional prognosis is highly compromised, and if the patient is managed by a multidisciplinary team. The French agency developed a dedicated portal to provide scientific advices, and at this time they give some advice for the academic production for my institution, and it opens the door for public production of phages that is complementary to the phages that are produced by company and potentially a good option. So we have a Phaginium program with two separate programs, development in the lab with preclinical research and development, preclinical models, research and development, and production of public phages, and it will be possible next year. This is Frédéric Laurent, my colleague, who he has the lead of this production. And from my part, in the clinical part, we have the Phaginium clinic with the clinical development. I organize multidisciplinary meeting to identify relevant indication, to manage the patient, to include the patient in randomized clinical trial, but also compassionate use, cohort studies, pharmacokinetic studies, and clinical trials. So this dedicated program is in close relationship with the French Health Authority. This program is integrated in all referral center for the management of complex bone infection for patients in dead-end clinical situation or at high risk of significant loss of function. We are using only pharmaceutical grade phages, fulfilling a list of quality controls that is checked by the French Health Authority. We need to perform phagogram to demonstrate phage susceptibility. We are using the phages in cocktails with antibiotics, and the phages are prepared by a hospital pharmacist under sterile conditions at the time of injections. So it's a huge work. So we published some papers about our point of view, and for me, all bacterial infections are not relevant for phage therapy. There is a crucial role of the clinical expertise and of the clinical multidisciplinary approach. And if there is a relevant indication, we have to treat the patient as soon as possible with the phages that are available. It could be from the industry or from academic production. And a key element is the importance of the time for availability, because the patient, infected patient, is waiting. So one of the point of view is to create a phage hub when you have a patient infected with different pathogens. Most of phages that we have target Staph aureus and Pseudomonas aeruginosa. For me, the most important clinical indication are bone joint infection, endocarditis, pneumonia, implant-associated infection. We have to determine the clinical relevance of phage therapy, to determine if the patient is, if it is possible to include the patient in the randomized clinical trial, and if not, we use compassionate use as a second way, mainly from a French private company, but we have also a public phage producer that can help us to find phages and to treat the patient. Finally, use the most appropriate phages depending on quality controls, activity, time to access, to treat the patient and to funded personalized phage therapy. So this is our experience. Since 2017, we treated 55 now patients, mainly with phages from a French private company, but also with phages from the Belgium group. Most of the patients treated was had bone and joint infection and prosthetic joint infection. As you can see, some patients are coming from so far, but we try our best also to train some colleagues in L'Île-Tourcoing, Brest, or in the southeast of France to be here with them to treat the patient locally to avoid transport of the patient. And this experience was very interesting because it opens the door to treat endocarditis, vascular graft infection, cardiac electronic device, but also lung infection. And we helped some colleagues, other colleagues in Europe, to treat their patients in Sweden, but also in Switzerland, based on this experience. Of note, multidrug resistance is only half of the treated patients, and most of the phages that we have target Staph aureus or Pseudomonas aeruginosa. So we published some our experience, case report, case series, and I would like to mention this case. A patient with Pseudomonas aeruginosa that was resistant to all antibiotics. The strain was also resistant to the phages that were available at this time from different companies in France, US, but also resistant to the phages that are available in the Belgium hospital. So a unique European academic collaboration was required to find phages to this patient. We found phages in the lab of Gregory Resch, but it was not purified phages. And under the supervision of French health authority, in a course of 3 months, 3 months it's quite long when you need intravenous opioid for back pain, but it's quite short to produce a dedicated medication to treat a patient with a success. So we published this case, and this case highlights the fact that in addition to industrial phages under development, academic collaborative research is crucial to develop personalized phage therapy. So I received a lot of requests from different clinical indications, and it is sometimes difficult to say what infection is relevant or not. Should we have to focus only on multidrug-resistant pathogens? I don't think so. Recently, the French Health Authority gave us the ability to centralize all the requests concerning last resort phage therapy treatment because of our expertise in the bone and joint infection. And I think there is a viable multi-layer interactions, finally. You have the infectious disease physician facing the patients that we have to treat. And finally, if you would like to treat the patient with phages, you need, of course, microbiologists, it's a key interaction, but also hospital pharmacists, surgeon, radiologists, and finally, pharmacologists. The hospital direction has to be aware, but also the ethics committee. So you have done a lot of job, but finally, not yet treated the patient. You need to have phages. But before having phages, you have to be in contact with National Healthcare Authority, that is in contact with European Medicine Agency, and you need phages, and where phages are coming from. From the industry, it's easier if you have a company in your own country. This is the case in France. We have a lot of chance. But you need to import other phages. You need to have also the possibility to have phages from public producer, and I think it's a huge work to connect everything to treat finally your patient. The second part is about local production of phages, because if you have a nice interaction between hospital direction, infectious disease ward, and microbiologist and the hospital pharmacy, you can have the project in line with the National Healthcare Authority to produce, to become a public center that can publish, that can produce the phages. And from my opinion, everything is required, because phages are highly specific to the targeted bacteria. There is a high number of different bacteria infecting humans. You know that we are in the tsunami of antimicrobial resistance. Both ways of producing phages are complementary, from my opinion, and is essential. And the SGNTA study group has a huge role, from my opinion, to give standard and to help to build a phage therapy center in each European country. So as a conclusion, you may have the feeling of being alone sometimes with the idea to have a phage therapy center. It was yesterday evening in Copenhagen. The guy was quite alone to try to do his best. But finally, I think we have to build a multidisciplinary team. And finally, you have to build your own model. Different models exist. And take the ones that fit more with your environment and with your area of expertise. And start with your area of expertise. Start to coordinate locally, to identify relevant indication, use only pharmaceutical-grade phages from the industry and, if possible, phages from public origin, start with compassionate use, participate to clinical trials, and join, of course, the SGNTA study group, because I think that together we can imagine what could be the standard for creating phage therapy center, to move from the mythology to the clinical evidence, because we need to demonstrate the added value of phages. So I acknowledge my colleagues in Lyon, especially my infectious disease colleagues in the Croix-Rousse hospitals. And don't hesitate to check our website and follow us on social media. Thank you.